When drawing your tree, don't draw it to the end of the paper. Draw it up a little bit. The trunk is much larger because that was the first thing to be born. And then as it branches off, it gets thinner and thinner. These are probably the first two branches that came from the little sapling tree. And then as it goes up, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And the tip of it is still growing, just like a small child or a baby. The tip of it, or the child, will be small when it starts out. And the longer it grows, the older it gets, the bigger it gets. Trail some branches off of the paper. This is called cropping. That's where it goes on, but it's out of the picture plane so you can't see it. And add some smaller ones. Whenever it comes out of a branch, obviously, it's going to be smaller. Don't make them straight as sticks, or straight lines, because that's not how a tree grows. It's kind of a little bit of jagged or curvy. They usually grow up, depending on the type of tree, towards the sun, because it needs the sun to grow. And when we cross over a line, we have to erase it so we don't see that line in the middle anymore. And after you have your medium branches from the large, then you can start adding on a few sticks. These are just smaller things that if there were to be a storm, they would come off of the tree because they are the youngest and the weakest. For further explanation, study the poster that's hanging on the wall. There's the tree trunk, and then it comes off with the larger branches, and then more medium-sized branches are added to it, but you have to erase the lines in them. And then you add on the smaller stick branches and establish a horizon line or a land line that divides the sky from the land. So for a fall tree, I think I've added enough sticks and lines. And now I'm going to establish a horizon line. That's just where the sky is going to come down and meet the land, so the tree doesn't appear to be floating. It doesn't have to be straight. It can be kind of curved. This is just land. This is step one. Step two involves texture of the tree. The bark. The bark is the skin coating of the tree. It protects the tree from infection. It is made up of a bunch of lines, and the lines create shadows, and the shadows create values, and it looks rough. This is actual texture here, where you can feel it, and it would be bumpy and rough. Here is implied texture where you think it would feel rough. We have to make some implied texture for the bark for our tree. To do that, we're going to trace everything with brown watercolor marker. This is just a dye, and then we place texture in, like this. We're going to do this to the whole tree. We can even add a little black if you think you need it. Do not trace the ground. I suppose you could with the brown. We're not coloring the tree, we're adding in the texture. This is going to be the darker areas that we saw. If you think that you need more sticks somewhere because it's starting to look a little bit empty, you can add more sticks on it. Just simply draw them on. And then we just kind of use choppy lines up and down vertically, and we add in the texture. Yes, even to the larger branches and the medium-sized branches. So it's going to look like tree bark or the skin of a tree. If you would like a little darker look to it, take your marker, the black one, and just add some darker lines into it. You don't have to do the whole thing like this. Just a little bit of darker ones. Everywhere around the tree, if you start on one part, maybe where there would be little to no shadow, little to no light coming in, so there would be more of a shadow, like between the branches. Those would be good places to put the black, just for a little bit of different color. Now, go over your ground line. your horizon line. And since it's fall, we're going to add in some brown grass, because I know mine's getting brown. Don't forget to cap your markers. And then there is still some green grass. Don't put any leaves on the ground yet, because this is all about texture. This project is all about texture. Don't color in any leaves up there, but suggest some grass on the ground. You can put some sticks on the ground or whatever you would like. I'm going to add some pumpkins just for fun, like hiding behind my tree. They're not going to be jack-o'-lanterns, just pumpkins. That's all, just pumpkins. Add a little orange into them. And you can add other things to the ground. Just don't draw people. This is not a people project. Just keep it nature. Necessary to color all the grass in, but do mix at least green and brown together for it. You could add some yellow in there too, if you wanted to. Remember, things are not just one color in art. Once we have what we want in here, now we're going to make some values of these colors. We're going to take some water, wet our brush, clean water. And then we're going to just apply the water onto the watercolor marker. And did you know it would do this? It's actually a watercolor dye. And you're going to go over the whole tree and create different values. A lot of water makes light values. Less water makes dark values. Values is the lights and darks of a color. You're going to do it all the way up to the tiny little branches. You can even add light branches onto that if you wanted to. And then you're going to do the ground and create the ground here. You can even do the pumpkins. Finish that, and we'll go on to the next step. From this point on, and you notice that I didn't paint all of it with water. I like some of the highlights, the lightness showing, but I did add in more branches because it was fun. We just need to carry this to the drying rack, place it on the drying rack, and let it dry, because right now it's really wet. If you would like to add some sky in, you can just put some clouds in. Mix the colors, make it as beautiful as you want. Go around the leaves, or these branches. Jump over them. We'll put a little sky in or a lot of sky in. You can mix colors. Just remember, don't draw over your tree trunk. And then, of course, you take the water and then you go over and you make it look like a sky. Don't get too close to your tree or it will bleed. These will look like clouds. Leave some white spots for the clouds. Remember, once again, this is a watercolor dye, and we can do things like this with the markers. Make sure you bring it all the way down to the land line, because that's where the sky meets the land. And this will bleed out or diffuse into the water on the paper. You might not want to put so many lines in. You might not want to put any sky in. I like to see a little sky on my paper. It helps if you go back and forth this way so it looks like the sky lines up with the horizon line. Left to right. All those places painted with water. The last thing we do is take a sponge and wet some watercolors in the appropriate colors for fall. Push the sponge into it and start putting the leaves on the trees just by dabbing. And you can make as many colors as you want. And to change the colors, you just rinse off the sponge and re-dab into a new color. And dab, dab, dab some more till you fill up your tree with leaves. Make sure to layer your watercolors, your leaves, heavily upon each other so the tree looks like it's full. And don't forget the ground as well. And there you have it, a fall tree, done with texture and simple watery dye.